Right, good morning. Slightly different video today. Those of you who followed me for a while know I struggled to get 500 subs, and now we're actually closer to 600 subs, which is absolutely amazing. So with that, because I've had the best part of 100 new subs recently, I've had quite a lot of questions regarding me, my background, training principles, injuries and things like that. So I'm going to be kind of just doing a reintroduction to my channel. And I'm going to break this video into 3 parts because it's essentially fallen into 3 categories. Me and who I am, my training, and injuries, what I've had and how I recovered. And that's pretty much it. So I'm going to upload this in 3 separate parts. So let's kick things off. Firstly, my name is RedHulk Atkinson, but believe it or not, I wasn't christened RedHulk. My actual name is Mark Atkinson. How do I describe myself? Well, in all my bios, the strongest man you've never heard of, which may well be true. Father, husband, teacher, lifter of heavy things, pizza connoisseur. And that pretty much sums me up. I'm a very simple guy. I am married. I've been with my wife for 23, almost 24 years now. We haven't been married that whole time, but we've been together for the best part of 24 years. I've got 2 lovely daughters. My oldest one is 12. Her name is Mia. You've probably seen her on the channel. And my youngest one is Amber. And you've probably also seen her on the channel as well. And they are both little monsters. They are both super strong. And my wife is, to be fair, as well. Now, in terms of family and what have you, my parentage, so my father isn't with us anymore, but my father was Jamaican, my mum's English. Her family's originally from Wales, but my mum's actually English born. So I'm mixed race. Now, genetics play a huge part in what I'm able to do and my size and all of that kind of stuff. My father was one of 9 and he was a huge man. His brothers were also very big, very strong men. So my dad was about 6'2" and well over 300 pounds. So he was probably like 140 kilos, 150 kilos. He was a very, very, very big man. Now, don't get me wrong, a fair amount of that was belly, but a fair amount of that was just brute muscle. He was just an old school, burly bear of a man, a working man. He was a garage mechanic and he used to be a galvanizer. And he in fact used to have a garage. I used to work down there as a kid with him. And the stuff I saw him do just used to like blow your mind as a kid. Like he would pick up engines and like carry them and things like that. And I'm not exaggerating. He would literally pick up engines, pick up these like big steel girders and just be like walking up and down the yard with them. He was just incredibly strong. And his brothers were very, very strong. My dad wasn't a gym guy, but his brothers were. So they were very influential in my early days as a little RedHulk watching my uncles down at the gym. Now, when I talk about my family, you know how like the Polynesian community, like Samoans, have got just reputations of being ridiculously big and strong. That was pretty much my family, and that is to this day. So I've only got one brother, but he's big and strong. He's 6'1", probably about 110 kilos, strong guy. My cousins, I come from a very, very large family, both physically, and there's a lot of us as well. Believe it or not, I've got over 70 first cousins. And when you see one Atkinson, you see us all. We just all have very similar facial shape and features with just different shades and different hair. But a lot of us look very, very similar. So if you're ever around the Birmingham area And you see one of us, you've probably seen the rest of us. So yeah, a lot of my cousins, most of the men in my family are at least 6 foot, and they range from, the smaller ones are about 100 kilos, right the way up to around 150 kilos. There is one who is actually a little heavier than that, but we're trying to work on that. But, and the tallest of us are about 6'5". I fall towards the top end. I'm not the biggest. I might be the strongest, but I'm not the biggest. So I am just under 6'3", and I weigh around 135, 136 kilos. Depends on the day and how many pies I've been eating. Now, a couple of you have asked me about the name RedHulk. Well, pretty simple, to be honest with you. I've had this nickname for years and years and years. I said to you guys already, I'm from a West Indian background, like my family's Jamaican. And if you know anything about Jamaicans, those of you who are on here who know Jamaicans, Jamaicans say what they see, and they're not the most politically correct people. So I'll give you an example. If your name's Paul and you've got an injured eye, your name's going to be One Eye Paul. If your name is Glenn and you've got a big belly, you'll be called Fat Man Glenn. That's just how Jamaicans are. So with me, within our community, my skin has got a slightly red tinge. I told you they're not very politically correct. So I'm what's known as red skin. And I'm pretty big, pretty strong. There comes Hulk. Put them together, RedHulk. Simple as that. Don't get me wrong, I love Marvel. I'm a bit of a comic book nerd, but it was nothing to do with the Marvel comics. I was just given that name many, many years ago because I'm red-skinned and I'm pretty strong. And that's pretty much it. So by profession, believe it or not, I know a lot of you guys know I personal train, but my actual real job in the real world, I'm actually a teacher. I'm a primary school teacher. So primary school in the UK is the ages of 5 all the way up to the age of 11. So I teach in the upper end of the school. I spent many years teaching year 6. At the moment, I'm currently teaching year 5. So my class are 9 and 10-year-olds, but I'm at the upper end of the school, and I'm part of like the management team within the school. So I'm kind of in charge of the upper end of the school. So yes, don't be fooled by the thick neck and the shaved head and the deep voice. I'm actually a primary school teacher, and I've been a primary school teacher for almost 20 years now. I also indicated that I'm a personal trainer. So my wife is a full-time personal trainer, and I've been part-time personal training now for 22 years. Yeah, 22 years. Wow, that just made me feel old. So 22 years I've been personal training. So how did I first get started? Now, I've been training now for over 30 years. So pretty long time, again, making myself feel very old. I'm 46 years of age. I know I look amazing, but remember, black doesn't crack. So yeah, I'm 46 years of age. And I got into lifting at the age of 16, or should I say properly lifting, in a gym. Now, I'll be very honest with you. I was born with a little monster on my shoulder. I'm a pretty chilled guy now, as you hopefully can see from the videos. But it took me a long time to get to the stage that I am now, where I'm, a pretty chilled, easygoing guy. I'm not saying I'm a psychopath or anything like that. I don't mean it like that, but I'm a pretty chilled person. But we all have that little monster in our head, and mine was maybe a little more pronounced than some other people's as a younger man. So I had quite a few difficulties with sort of anger and aggression and things like that. So training for me, lifting weights, was an absolutely wonderful outlet for me. So I first set foot in a gym, like training properly, when I was 16. So in 1995, the beginning of 1995. And as I walked through the door and got into it, I just fell in love with training. It was the best thing ever. I said to you guys before, my dad wasn't really into lifting. He went to the gym occasionally, I'd go with him, but nothing regularly. But I did used to accompany my uncles to the gym here and there, but I was a little bit too young to actually lift. So I used to watch them and I was just in awe of what I saw. In addition, being born in the 70s and growing up in the 80s, I was just surrounded on TV and in the cinemas by like Arnold, Sylvester Stallone, Dolph Lundgren, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and all these like really jacked up muscular guys who were, hitting things, flexing their muscles. And it was just a great time to grow up. If you were someone that was, into action, and I was very much a boy's boy, into just fighting and muscles and comics, and I was one of those kids. And sort of growing up and being surrounded by these influences on TV and in the cinemas, and then being related to a bunch of the best I can describe as Rasta Vikings. It was amazing. Then having a dad who was carrying around car engines and things like that. It was just the perfect storm for someone like myself to be like, just admire strength and admire muscle. So yeah, I first got into the gym in 1995 and I just fell in love with it. Absolutely fell in love with it. I was very, very lucky. I trained by myself for a couple of weeks and I was very keen, didn't know what I was doing. But a group of guys, older guys, took me under their wing, and so big shout out to them. So there was a Rasta called Wizzy, there was his brethren called Louis, and the other brethren called Charlie Brown. And I'm grateful for them to this day. They were just a great group of guys. They were much older than me. I was 16. They varied from their late 30s to early 40s at the time. But they showed me the ropes, and I trained with them for about a year, and they just put me on a good basic bodybuilding split. So from what I recall, I've done so many different splits over the years. From what I recall, it was chest and triceps, back and biceps, shoulders, abs and triceps, and then you had leg. That was just a good basic start, and it was great. And I grew like a weed. When I first walked into the gym, I was a big, strong, athletic kid. I was always a lot stronger than other kids of my age. I was stronger than men, to be honest with you. I grew up being unusually strong. So when I walked in the gym for the first time, I was probably around 6 feet. So I wasn't fully grown, but I was about 6 feet tall. And in kilos, I was probably around 90 kilos, thereabouts, and reasonably lean with it. I was what you describe as big athletic. I wasn't super ripped, but, I had abs and I was, pretty big and lean. Big frame and all that kind of stuff. And as I started lifting weights, I just put on size. I got bigger and stronger really, really quickly. Within my first year, I put on approximately 30 pounds. So what would that be? Maybe about 12, 13 kilos, something like that. I don't know exactly, but something in that kind of region. It's hard to say, it was a very long time ago, but I remember putting on in around that. And a lot of it was muscle. I'm not saying it was all muscle, but a lot of it was muscle. And I just became very strong very quickly. In terms of the weights I very first moved, the very first time I ever tried a bench press, I managed to do a plate, like 60 kilos. Within a month, I could hit 100 kilos. And by the end of my first year, just prior to my 17th birthday or thereabouts, I was able to hit 140 kilos. Now, I am not pretending the 140 kilos was pretty and perfect by any means, This was the 1990s. I was young and strong and full of testosterone, and I had a big ego, and I just was the original ego trainer. There was no ego training before I got into gyms, trust me. I just loved lifting weights, and I would do it at any cost. We'll talk about injuries and stuff like that on another video. But just to give you an idea of my strength levels, I was a strong kid. I was a very strong kid. By the time I was towards 18, I could move over 200 kilos on the squats. Again, not pretending they were perfect, but again, you get the idea. Deadlifts, by the time I'd been training a couple of years, I was pulling probably about 260 as well. I think it was about, yeah, I can't remember the exact age, but I was pulling about 260 in my probably later teens, early 20s. Again, it's a very long time ago, so I can't quite remember. Once I'd been training with this group for a while, I then was taken under the wing of like a guy who was the king of the gym. And he was a guy called Phil Hughes, who was just an absolute monster of a man. So if you can just imagine, I don't know if you guys know the wrestler Goldberg. Now, he was built kind of like Goldberg, just neck, traps, just big, thick, strong guy. Hadn't got a goatee beard, just got a shaved head, but he was built like that, really big, strong guy. And he was the king of the gym. He was 20 years older than me, so I started training with him when I was around 18. He was 38. And he'd been training for a long time by then. He'd been training for 20 odd years. And training with him was just like starting again. Because my original group of training partners, I actually closed the gap on them pretty quickly. And within the year, I was as strong or stronger than them, to be honest with you. But then I'd started to garner a little bit of a reputation for myself in the gym as someone that was young and very strong. So it was now my turn to train with Phil, and Phil invited me to train with him. And little did I know what I was letting myself in for. I had admired him for a very long time. As a kid, he was from the same area as me. As a kid, I'd seen him around the area, and he was just this big, muscly guy. And just looked phenomenal and massive and scary. And so when I grow up, I want to look like that. You know, it's one of those. And so to train with him for me was an absolute honor. I just wanted to learn and what have you. From his point of view, however, I think he thought I was a challenger for his title. And he just whooped me. Plain and simple, he whooped me. And he whooped me and whooped me and whooped me every session. And because he'd got a reputation for killing training partners, that was kind of his thing. However, I didn't die. That was also my thing. I was born very strong, but I was also born with a very strong mindset as well. And my mindset is actually from my mum, more so than anyone. My mum is easily the strongest person I know, like mentally. And I didn't mention mum earlier on. So my mum is about 5'7" and quite a big frame. So she's not a small woman herself, but her mindset is like second to none. So I'll shout out my mum as well. So, mindset-wise, it took me a while to realise that he's trying to kill me. I just thought that was training. And then I cottoned on. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I just kept on coming back. And the beatings kept on continuing, but it took a little longer to kill me every single time. And then after a little while, Phil realised I wasn't going anywhere. And we just became training partners. We trained extremely hard. And he showed me a lot just in terms of what it was to be dedicated, mentality. He showed me that side of it. Take away the fact I was just getting stronger because he was just a very, very strong guy. He was also very fit and a proponent of high volume training and very little in the way of rest periods. So it gave me a really good foundation in terms of my fitness because although I'm pretty strong, I'm also pretty fit and I've got quite good muscular endurance. Now, I trained with Phil for about 6 years, and again, grateful to this day. He's a great guy. We've lost contact, unfortunately, nowadays, but you know, to this day, I'm again very, very grateful because he gave me a good foundation. And I mean, I know I had my dad and my uncles, but he was like a mentor figure to me as well, like a kind of big brother figure. And I think as a young man, it's very important that you have older males in your life, maybe outside your family, ideally, as well. So I learned a lot from him, you know, just about training, but also just life as well. So it was a really good influence. Now, we went our separate ways after about 6 years. Life happens, work happens, and all those kind of things. And that is where I really started to take off in terms of my strength and things. I loved bodybuilding, and because I was just addicted to the gym and I was just so thirsty and hungry for knowledge, I ended up buying every kind of bodybuilding magazine you could imagine. Flex Magazine, Muscular Development, Muscle Mag International, Iron Man, there's probably more. I also bought every book there was, Arnold's Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, Pumping Iron, the book, Mike Mentz's Heavy Duty, Dorian Yates' Warrior's Story, and there were more. I'm sure there were loads more. I also bought VHSs. I was a kid. I used to work part-time, so I'd sort of save my money and get my mum to write a check for me, and I'd like mail order all these videos. So I had every VHS that what there was literally for sale in Flex Magazine. I had every single one of them, and I just used to watch them until they wore out. I bought, when VHSs kind of went on the back burner, I bought DVDs and the same kind of thing. And like Ronnie Coleman, Cost of Redemption, oh my gosh, Ronnie Coleman, The Unbelievable. I am like script perfect on it. I can't begin to tell you the amount of times I watched that. It was like training fuel for me. So I used to just read the magazines and watch the DVDs, and I just used to copy the routines of these like IFBB pros. Now, remember, in the 1990s, in the mid 1990s, the internet was in its infancy. It was almost non-existent. Fitness, YouTube, and the online fitness was non-existent. Commercial gyms didn't exist. There were only basic gyms, like my gym that I grew up in. I spent 19 years training there. Was a place called Total Fitness, which was in the heart of the Black Country. So the gym that I went to was just, again, an amazing place for growth. It was a proper, you know, when you talk about hardcore gym, it really was a hardcore gym. It was full of big burly men who were either competitive bodybuilders, they were like bouncers, doormen, and there was like the universal goal of being the biggest, strongest guy in the gym. And I wanted to be the biggest guy, the biggest and strongest guy in the gym, just like everyone else. So it was just a great environment for growth. And you used to see quite a lot of big guys moving some reasonable poundages. A lot of guys down there were benching 140 kilos or more. So that became normal. And I think when you surround yourself with people like that, those weights become normalized. I think sometimes nowadays with the advent of commercial gyms, a lot of that environment is maybe being watered down somewhat. So if you only ever see people, I don't know, benching 60 kilos, 80 kilos, that becomes normal. And there's nothing wrong with benching 60 or 80 kilos. But when you start seeing people moving more weight and doing different exercises and things like that, I just used to copy the big guys, you know, and it worked. Don't get me wrong, I got a lot of injuries because I'd copy them and get it wrong. Or I'd look in a magazine and copy a picture of someone deadlifting. I said, you miss all the nuances, and I'd like round my back and got a sciatica and ended up messing myself up, which I'll talk about in another video. But you get the idea. So sometimes your environment is important. So if you are someone who's watching this video who maybe gets a little bit of inspiration from me, awesome. But sometimes there's just nothing like seeing it in real life. And, you know, if you have the ability to do so, maybe just try getting yourself down another gym and see what's out there. Because you'd be surprised. Seeing it in real life can be very helpful, and quite inspirational, if you want to call it that. And sometimes just talking to older lifters. Now, I know not everyone is always the most friendly down gyms, but a lot of the time, bigger guys are, older guys are. Like, I can't tell you the amount of advice I've given to like younger lifters, and the sort of words of encouragement I try to give to younger lifters. And as I said, not necessarily, not everyone's like me, but there's a lot of us who are. So, and you'll find out in another video, you know, in terms of general philosophies, one of my big things is kind words cost nothing and they mean everything. Genuinely, kind words cost nothing and mean everything. So if you're a bigger guy down the gym, look out for the younger ones, give them a bit of encouragement. And just put yourself in their shoes, because you know what it's like when you're young and you get a compliment from an older lifter. God, mate, you're putting on some size or whatever. Oh my goodness, if someone said that to me, I was like a giddy little schoolgirl, like blushing and stuff. It was amazing. So you just have to remember where you came from sometimes, and try and give it back a little bit, because your words, you don't know what's going on with someone. You don't know what's going on in their life. You don't know what's going on in their head. They might be having a bad day. They might be having a bad day. Who knows? And so sometimes, you know, just a couple of kind words and then go about your business. It can make a big difference, can make you smile, can make someone else smile. You know, we're all good. We're all good. Now, when I started really becoming experimental and reading the magazines and learning from these bodybuilders, that was when my training really, really took off. I just became a student of the sport. I just wanted to learn everything. A guy who was a massive influence on me was a bodybuilder from the golden era called Geronda. And he did lots of unusual exercises. He was sort of from Arnold's era. And he was very lean. He wasn't a big guy. He wasn't known for strength, but he was very lean, but he was very, very knowledgeable. And one of the things that he used to encourage, and he used to do himself, was he would go into a gym and he would only do one exercise, and then he would see where he got DOMs, like soreness, the next day. So let's take something like parallel bar dips. He would try leaning forward on them and just do several sets of them. And then the next day he'd say, oh, I felt that in my lower outer chest. I felt that in my front delt. I felt it in my triceps, or whatever. You get the idea. So I started doing that, and I would literally go into the gym and I might do something like German volume training, 10 by 10, but I would do it just with, you know, not your conventional 10 sets of squats, because that's often what you see with things like German volume training. But I would do it with like anything. I would do it with preacher curls. I would do it with reverse curls. I would do it with behind the neck pull downs. And I did this until I built up this sort of Mark's encyclopedia of bodybuilding. And I would literally go away, oh, I felt that in my rhombus. Oh, I felt that in my serratus, or whatever it is, all these weird and wonderful muscles. And that was kind of how I really, really got to understand the body and what stuff does. So not only was I concerned with being strong and being as big and strong as I could be, I was also concerned with I just wanted to know what stuff did. So nowadays, having trained for 30 years, I've got a pretty good solid foundation and understanding of, you know, lifting, strength training, but also like the sort of bodybuilding aspect of things as well. Now, I'm going to do a separate video on my actual training style, training principles, training philosophies, and those kind of things on another occasion. But hopefully that has given you a bit of a general oversight of who I am, where I'm from, and all of that good stuff. So as always, thank you very, very much for feeding this old man's ego. My page is small. No one needs to tell me it's small. I know it's small, but it's growing, which is great. But also, it's just a really cool place. It's just really nice. I'm really enjoying, genuinely, really, really enjoying the interactions I'm having with you guys. And every single person who comments, I do my best to get back to you guys and give you a response to whatever. So, you know, you've taken your time out of your day to pass on the love and you know, your kind words, and it means a lot. So the least I can do is try and respond in kind. So thank you very much. So yeah, we're actually now closer to 600 subs than 500 subs, which is quite crazy. And I know it doesn't sound like a lot to some people, but to me it's amazing. All you lot watching this lump lift a bit of weight in his back garden. Pretty cool stuff, pretty cool stuff. Anyway, do not forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff. I will be back, Arnold, I'll be back with part 2 pretty soon. So you guys take care, and I'll speak to you soon.